I was just writing down a legend that I wondered if you would be interested in. Oh, you would? Splendid. The legend comes from Pliny, although whether he had it from the philosopher it concerns, I do not know. But one time there was, in the great resort of Pompeii, an inn of good repute, where wise men would come on their journey up to see the god of the Vulcan, who lived up there on the top of the mountain. Many men would go up to him to request treasure or good fortune. Some didn't come back. But that was no fault of the innkeeper. Everyone knew that. But times change. For change is the only constant. And as Terence wisely says, the best days, they have already been and are long, long gone. All that is clearly so. So, the inn gradually got an evil reputation. People used to mutter there was something wrong, something rotten. There, in that beautiful colonnaded house, with its courtyard with a fountain always playing. The innkeeper had to reduce his prices. People still came. It was a beautiful place, but of a lower sort. And it was noted that some would scream in the night, and they would come out unable to talk about what had happened to them. Fear spread through the town, and the innkeeper lowered his prices yet again. And then, of course, you get the lowest sort, who came in their numbers, thinking, here was such a place, such a colonnaded house they hadn't often seen, with its fountain, and luxury indeed, a stove. And then the deaths started. It was first Bella, a lovely prostitute who worked, I am sorry to say, that colonnaded room, came out one day screaming that she had seen it at last and that no one was safe. She went to the forum, and there she seemed to die, stricken, her humours distraught by fear. By fear! And nor was she the first. Whoever used that inn would come out at best with a nightmare or madness, and at worst would be struck dead with fear. And soon, only the very bravest, the kind of adventurers, would go to that inn. There was one famous warrior had done marvellous, marvellous deeds on the Parthian campaign. He said that as the Parthians used evil magi, evil spirits, and the dead were nothing for him to be scared of. Be that as it may, in the morning, the innkeeper and the mayor of Pompeii himself came to the inn, and there was the grizzled old warrior, sat bolt upright in a chair, holding himself on for very fear, and all he would say is, green eyes glowing in the dark, bones pointing, green eyes. And he said it again and again, green eyes glowing in the dark, bones pointing. And he was dead before the winter. Well, at that point, the dignitaries of the city, fearing for the sanity of the population, closed the inn and demanded that no one, but no one, should go there. It was then that Apollodorus, that well-known scholar, started to make his slow way down to Pompeii. Now, whether he had intended from the first to stay in the inn, or whether that was just a serendipity, I do not know. But at last he turned up after days travelling on the roads, by foot, at the inn, and said that he wanted to spend the night, and that he was a friend of Caesar himself, which was nearly true. He knew friends of Caesar's. And the innkeeper said, "Well, I don't know. I'm not allowed to rent it." And Apollodorus said, "No, if anything, I will pay you for the privilege." And the innkeeper said, "Well, all right then, all right. Go on then." So, Apollodorus took with him the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth book of the Republic, meaning to study them all night, and to write a treatise of his own on the truth he felt that Plato revealed. For Plato has had a vision of the One that shines, that emanates as creation, in circles each lower than itself. And as he was writing about the power of the One that shines beyond unity at the centre of all things, as the sun is the centre of the universe, suddenly behind him there was a noise, like slow creaking footsteps, and with them a slight clang as of old chains. But I was writing and would not be disturbed, for the One is the one and all alone, and nothing can disturb it. Just then he looked down on his desk, and he saw on both sides of his hands two bony hands had come, pressing down on the desk on either side. Something must be standing over him. But I did not move, for although the dogs in Pompeii barked with fear, I had just got on to writing about the intellect that surely Plato saw in that vision of the cave, the intellect that emanates as light emanates from the sun, that emanates from the One, and gives all creation its mind and thought. And then he felt, pressing behind him, a weight, as if something was leaning past him, and two green eyes seemed to emerge from the side of his head, looking round as it were, and he turned to them and said, "Well, do you mind? I am just about to write about the world soul, that great spirit that all of us, living and dead, do share, in whose light we exist, that is for us the living God, and you are in my light. If you must go, go on the other side, away from the candle, please." And so as he wrote about the world soul, and how all our souls are but its living parts, flecks in its mighty truth, two green eyes appeared, set in the dark with a wild, mad look, and underneath them, teeth that had seen more time than truth, and looked fearful. And Apollodorus, although he tried not to look up, seemed to see that there were gold fillings in the teeth, as if they'd once belonged to some kind of very wealthy man. But he had just turned and said, "Your teeth remind me, I have not written of the final state, of matter itself, debased without a soul, mere an empty vessel, turned as it were into a living demon, a torment for our spirit to be encased in." And he sat, wrote and wrote about matter, looking up from behind him from time to time at that dark form that seemed half there in the shadow, with its green wild eyes and bone hands, and form that might have been wrapped, for all he knew, in some kind of dark shroud. Finally he wrote, "Pliny, and now, my fine fellow, we are done. And by the power that I have what I have written, I know you have a message for me. For mere debased matter would be but putrid, and you must be a revenant, with a dream of your own to share. Share it then." And the spirit started to move quickly towards the colonnade and the central yard. Apollodorus said, "I'm an old man. I have been writing all night. We must go slowly." And so slowly then, he went out of the room and into the yard. And as he looked up, he saw the sun was rising. And he turned to the spirit and said, "In sunlight your power will be broken, for the echo of the one burns through false matter. So quick, tell me your truth." And the spirit pointed down to the ground as the rays of the sun caught it, and it was gone. Well, Apollodorus had workmen dig up that space of ground, and do you know what they found? Rich merchants. Some of those who had gone to see Vulcan had never quite got to the volcano, and had not disappeared because the god had taken them, but rather because the innkeeper was in consort with robbers. And so it was, the robbers and the innkeeper met their fate. And Apollodorus, he carried on his journey, as he always did, journeying from place to place, learning and teaching about the One.